Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to the very latest Mintlayer community call. My name is Sam Patton, and I'm here with our development lead, Ben Marsh, to take you through the very latest of what we've been working on. My name is Sam Patton, and I'm here with our development to take you. All right. Little headphone issue. Just give me 1 second. Ben, are you there?
I am here. Yeah.
Great. Fantastic. Give me 2 seconds. I'm just going to get a set of headphones. All right, great. That seems to be working. So how are you today, Ben?
I am very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, doing well. All right, cool. So let's jump in. Now, thanks everybody for being on the call. Now, we have a stack of things to cover today. So let me run through what we're going to be covering in the next 30 minutes or so. First and foremost, we've got a bunch of announcements to make. So we're going to take you through that. We'll do a quick recap on the last development update. It has been a little bit of time since we did one of those. And so we've got a bit to cover just to keep everybody up to date with how things are tracking along here at Mintlayer. Then we're going to jump into what we've been working on. As I mentioned in the announcements, it has been a really busy month and a half, effectively, since we all got together again. So really excited to share with you what we've been working on, as well as what's coming next. There's a couple of things, one that is on the roadmap, one that's not announced. We've kind of alluded to it before, but we will be making an announcement around that as well. So that's what we're going to be covering on the call today. So let's jump into the first order of business, which is announcements. Now, the first, I guess, big change is the fact that we are doing the call on Telegram. Okay. Now, we know many of you love engaging here. We've got a great community happening here in Telegram. And so we've made the decisions to move the calls right to where the action is actually happening. And the next, of course, is Mojito. Now, we launched Mojito on the 30th of June to Android, and we've had a really fantastic reception by the community. Now, we keep a watchful eye on Telegram, and we've made note of many of your suggestions on how we can improve the wallet. Now, the team is working tirelessly to add more features and functionality to the app, and I guess that's probably a good opportunity here. Ben, why don't you share a little bit about some of the things that we've got in the pipeline for Mojito? I know we've been working on a number of more robust security features to it. Would you care to share a little bit about some of the behind-the-scenes changes, if you will, for Mojito?
Yeah, sure. So, as you said, there are a handful of things we're currently working on. So the next thing that will be publicly released, which there have been some interesting developments on today, in fact, is going to be Lightning Network support. So that will be added to the app in the relatively near future. So this is under active development as we speak. There are three other features which are sort of being planned at the moment, and development will start shortly. One of which is going to be integration with hardware wallets, so Ledger, Trezor, these sorts of things. So there have been some conversations about this, and the sort of planning for the development work has started. So actual development will start very soon. And then there are, as you mentioned, two security-ish features coming up. One is multi-sig wallets and support for multi-sig. And the other is going to be the ability to provide your own entropy when creating a wallet, rather than relying purely on the random number generation in the app.
Fantastic. So for those of you who are a little more security minded, there's going to be some pretty advanced features there for you as well too. So that's great news. There's lots to look forward to. And I guess now is probably as good a time as any to make a bit of an announcement. So we know that many of you have been patiently waiting. Of course, we launched on Android, and we've been pending App Store approval from Apple. And I'm pleased to announce that after quite an arduous approval process, Mojito is now officially live and available in the Apple App Store for download. Okay, we went live about an hour ago, so keep listening to the call here. But of course, if you do want to jump over and download, if you want to download Mojito, it is currently live on the App Store, and I'm just going to put a little link here in the stream, so you can see a link over here to download that straight from the website. However, if you jump into Apple's App Store, you will be able to get straight in and download that. It's live, it's functional, it's all ready to go. Now, of course, it took us a little longer than expected, and this is one of the tricky things, I guess, with any sort of app development. Apple's quite thorough when it comes to crypto apps in particular, but we have managed to navigate through their checks, and you can now download and use Mojito on your Apple devices. So feels like a long time that I've been waiting to say that, but it's officially live. We'd love for you to jump in and download that and share your feedback with us in Telegram. Cool. All right. So those are the big announcements that we've got here. Now let's move on to just a bit of an update in the what we talked about on the last community call. A couple of things here, and Ben, feel free to jump in if we need to elaborate on any of this further, but we sort of talked about the node architecture, remote procedure calls, the consensus mechanism, database storage, and crypto primitives, which we are going to talk about in more depth shortly. So, Ben, I know you and the team have been hard at work since we last got together and had a community call. So why don't we launch into what's new? I've got a list of things here to run through, and I think we could probably start at the top with crypto primitives. Now, crypto primitives, as you may or may not know, are basically the building blocks to any cryptographic protocol. So could you share a little with us on how these apply to Mintlayer and the new work that's been done on them since we last shared with the community?
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, the crypto in cryptocurrency comes from the word cryptography, which is how I'm using the word crypto here. So when I say crypto primitives, I mean cryptography rather than cryptocurrency specifically here. So last time we discussed Schnorr signatures. So this is public key cryptography. It's how you sign a transaction, sign a block, these sorts of things. So that was sort of done the last time we spoke about this. There's been a little bit more work towards adding BLS support. We probably won't do that just for the time being. We've got more important things to focus on at the moment, rather than adding a second public key crypto algorithm. So we've been focusing on two things really. So one is symmetric key cryptography. So we've added something called CHA-20 poly 1305. So essentially we have the ability now when we create the wallet as part of a node. So the wallet that you might run if you're going to try and become a block signer, the ability to store your private keys locally while encrypted. So they'll be encrypted at rest. So the poly 1305 bit of this is a message authentication code essentially. So it's essentially authenticated. So we know where it came from in the first place. So we can verify that it hasn't been modified or anything like this. But yeah, so that's one thing that's been added recently. The other thing is we have added support for VRFs. So verifiable random functions. So these are going to be the building blocks of our first version of DSA when we launch the mainnet early next year. We will have version 0 of DSA, which will resemble the DSA protocol that's been defined before, although there's a lot of work before we actually get to the end. So this sort of first step will be heavily based on other people's work, and essentially using their security proofs, so we don't have to go off and do everything ourselves for the time being. We will do that when we do our own consensus from scratch, but for the time being, heavily based on other people's work. So VRFs are going to be a building block of this for the time being.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So moving on to the next topic, which is of course the test framework. Now, clearly, in any development, we do need to test, but I guess due to the nature of a decentralized project like this, we need a series of nodes in order to permit proper testing. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the new developments in the testing framework and how that impacts the team's ability to develop more efficiently?
Yeah, so before we added our new test framework, we were essentially testing things in isolation. So we had a unit test for a specific function. Does the function do what we're expecting it to do? Let's say we have a basic function which adds two numbers together. I give it the arguments 1 and 2. Does it return 3? That sort of thing. So specifically, does it do what I want? But that doesn't prove that everything works together. And it's very easy for things to work in isolation, but not necessarily while they're all grouped together.
Of course,
So
yeah.
the new functional test framework, which has been written, so it existed in our old code base, and essentially we've rewritten it now to work with the new code base. The idea is it spins up a small local network and tests everything together. So we have the ability to submit blocks, to create transactions, all these sorts of things. The real world functions of the entire network. So we have this sort of standalone framework which will test this. So every time we make a change, we can verify that everything still works.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's what we've been working on quite heavily. So it's now about 20% or so of the code base, nearly, is this test framework now. So it's become really quite large, which is a good thing as far as I'm concerned. So we have it, and it runs. People run it when they're doing development. It runs as part of our continuous integration. So we know as soon as new code is written, if it's broken, anything else elsewhere.
Fantastic. Great. Cool. So moving on. Now, I want to jump into block processing and handling. Now, Mintlayer tokens have different standard specifications, and I know that what we've been working on at the moment are the MLS1 and the MLS3 tokens. So what might be a good idea here, Ben, is if you can give, just for our audience who perhaps hasn't read through the white paper, could you share maybe a brief overview of those token standards and the new developments of late with respect to block filtering and processing?
Yeah, of course. So as you mentioned, we have 3 token standards, and we've been focusing on MLS01s and MLS03s. So MLS03 is the NFT standard. So these are the non-fungible tokens on Mintlayer. So they are essentially the simplest type of token. There's not an awful lot you can do with them other than have some kind of data attached to it, and you have an NFT. So we have the initial development work on these is currently ongoing, and there's been some testing of the code that exists, these sorts of things. So we expect that to be merged relatively soon now. The same is also true of MLS01s, which are the standard tokens. So these are the tokens that sort of fill the same niche on Mintlayer as an ERC20 does on Ethereum. So if you wanted to release your own token, that's almost certainly going to be what you're after. So if you want to go and release Sam token, then you're going to want an MLS01. So yeah, this is an active area of research at the moment. We had an implementation on the old code base, so a lot of that work has been sort of able to be sort of borrowed, so to speak. So we've changed slightly how a few things work from the original code base, so there's a little bit of research going on, but I would expect this will be merged relatively soon now, so the next month or so. I would expect this. By the time we have this call again, I would expect that work to probably be finished.
Great.
So I'm going to fill in a slight gap here because, of course, we've mentioned MLS01 and MLS03. So I should probably mention what MLS02 is.
What goes in between the two, of course.
Yeah. So these are the confidential tokens. So these are going to use a different set of cryptographic primitives, probably some kind of zero knowledge stuff, bit snarks, bulletproofs, and ring signatures so that both the destination of the transaction and the contents of the transaction remain secret on chain. This is going to be one of the last. It's one of the last things in the roadmap. So we're away from even starting that work at the moment. So we're getting the important things done first, and then these sort of nice shiny features will come in the future.
Right, of course, and that's because this is quite a complicated area of research, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's. I mean, realistically, it's why I'm at Mintlayer. This is why I joined specifically to work on this stuff. So it's, to me, probably the most exciting area, most interesting area, but is also one of the more complex things we have to solve. And it fills a niche that's not essential. It's a nice thing to have, but everything is functional without them. So we have more important things to focus on for the time being, and we will add these sort of nice to haves in the future when we have a bit more time. So you also mentioned the sort of block processing stuff. So
yeah, of course. Yeah.
We've added the emission schedule now. So these are the block rewards. So every time someone signs a block for the first 10 years, there's another 200 million Mintlayer tokens, which will be released as block rewards. So this has now been implemented. So this exists. We have the emission schedule now in the node. And we've been making some changes to make that code more robust. So there's going to be a very big merge soon, which Lucas has been working on. So we have changed how the Genesis block works for security reasons. So it's not a normal block in inverted commas. So yeah, there's been lots of things going on there for security reasons, and also some of it is just optimizations that we took a few weeks to have a sort of cleanup period where we didn't work on any new features, and we just sort of refactored old code. We went back, and if there was anything that had sort of been niggling you in the back of your head since you had written the code, we went back and fixed it, did these sorts of things. So it's been lots of cleanup and lots of small optimizations been going on recently as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And now the last thing on my list to ask you about is the proof of stake consensus for the mainnet. Now, I understand there's been some pretty significant headway made at the research stage of the DSA consensus system. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about where the team's at with that currently and what the implications are for the project with that?
So yeah, as you said, a couple of us have been focusing on this quite a lot, and we have a fairly good idea now of where we're going to be when we launch. So we know we can't launch the full version of DSA when we go. That's never been the intention. So there's so much work that needs to go into writing security proofs for some of the more novel ideas in DSA and all these sorts of things. But it's just not realistic, given the roadmap. But this has always been the case. So when we start, we're going to use a more traditional consensus protocol, as I think the best way to phrase it. So this is the version 0, where things are a bit more known. We know the security implications of things. And there have been a few conversations with people outside of Mintlayer, so academics working on this it's what they do full time.
Sure.
And we're heading towards having this sort of initial proof of stake existing relatively quickly now. So over the next couple of months, we will just slowly integrate parts of it. So I mentioned we've now got an implementation of the RFs. So now over the next couple of months, we'll add it bit by bit. And later this year, we will have a full proof of stake consensus system. So yeah, there's been lots of research. There's been some research based on other people's research. There's been some research which has been relatively novel. And some just conversations with other people who have already done research themselves rather than us having to go off and do it ourselves. We have also, because we've been going down this route anyway, a lot of the conversations that have been had both externally and internally, and a lot of the research that's been done has given ideas as to where DSA is going to end up. So although we're focusing on version 0 at the moment, it would be unfair to say that there's nothing happening on actual DSA with a final version as well. So it's kind of going on in parallel, but with a different end. So it will continue even after version 0 is finished. But yeah, that's roughly what is going on the proof of stake side.
Great. Okay. Fantastic. Well, that's all that I've got on my list here as far as topics to talk about. Is there anything
I guess
else?
there's one more thing we could talk about,
Sure.
which is
Okay.
Mojito Web.
Yes. Well, I was gonna wait to talk about that, but we may as well jump into it now.
Okay, let's go for it. Apologies.
No problem. All right, you can explain what's been happening on that front.
Yeah, so we have created and are currently a fair way into development. So it's an internal release at this point, although it's not fully functioning. It exists, of a web version of the Mojito wallet. So it's a browser extension.
Yeah.
So like you might use MetaMask or these sorts of things, there will be a Mojito wallet to be used in a similar way. So it will launch with the same feature set as the mobile wallets have. But I mean, it will be sort of slightly offset. So Lightning Network support will come afterwards and so on. So it will track for the same roadmap, but just offset slightly. So yeah, this is been going on for a short while now. So it started relatively recently, but has already come on quite a long way. But yeah, I would expect that we will see this go live sometime in a couple of months' time.
Great.
I won't put a solid date on it at this point, but over the next couple of months or so, we should have a better idea. But yeah, we're getting close.
Fantastic. So you heard it here first. Mojito is getting a browser extension as well. I know that we'd sort of talked about it in passing at the last community call, but I figured it was a good opportunity for us to I guess officially announce it, because it's not on the official roadmap, but we are working on that at the moment, which is fantastic. So that's one of the big things that's coming up next, and of course as well, what is on the roadmap is the Lightning Network integration for Mojito. Of course, that's going to be quite a significant upgrade to the wallet, and will make using it for everyday transactions much more efficient. How are we tracking on that front, Ben, at this stage?
Yeah, fairly well. So there is a pull request open, which includes part of that Lightning Network support. So it's not fully functional at the moment, and there is some design work and these sorts of things to go. But it's usable, I think, is the best way to phrase it. Even if not particularly ergonomic at this point.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
Great. So plenty in store for Mintlayer as we launch full steam ahead towards the mainnet. Now, just internally, so we've got a little more time here. So I do want to open up for questions. Okay, so if you've got questions, please do jump down into the official community chat in Telegram and post them in there. We do have a bit of time to take a couple of questions here that you do have about the stuff that we've just talked about specifically. While we've got Ben here, it makes sense to keep it on topic with the technical roadmap. While we wait for some of those questions to come in, I do want to just give a bit of an update on the community front. So we have some plans to bring more calls, obviously community calls like this, but also we're working towards putting together some more exciting presentations for you here as well. Right? We know that many of you are interested in the technology behind Mintlayer, and we appreciate your continued support and tracking of the project here. However, we want to also to share how we think builders can use Mintlayer to change the world. So we're going to be bringing in some other experts talking about perhaps the kinds of projects or how Mintlayer might be applied to solve more real-world problems using Mintlayer. So keep an eye on Telegram for those events. We're going to have a lot more coming your way over the next couple of months. Alrighty. So now is a great time, guys. If you've got some questions, pop them down into the official community chat on Telegram. If you're watching this on Discord, sorry, not on Discord, on YouTube, feel free to jump into the Telegram chat, which is where we're taking those questions. So that's t.me/Mintlayer to get access to that. If you would like to get some questions asked and answered. Just going to take a minute here for these questions to come in and just grab a drink. Sorry, I'm just getting a few DMs with questions as well here too. Alrighty, so questions. Now, I've got a question in here from Magform has asked, I want to ask a question about the vesting. From what I can understand, you can also use the tokens investing to create a block signer node. But if I intend to create a sort of pool, from what I understand, I can also use vesting tokens. So I was wondering if somehow others will also be able to entrust me with their vesting tokens. Ben.
So this is a question we've actually been thinking about a lot recently. So there was quite literally a phone call yesterday where other Sam, and I were talking about this exact question. So the answer is there will almost certainly be a way for us to do this. We have a few ideas of how we can implement this. So we were on the call for 2 and a bit hours yesterday discussing. This was one of the few things we discussed. And yeah, although I can't give you a solid answer as to exactly how it will work at the moment, we can definitely go. It will be possible in the end. Yeah.
Okay. Great.
So next time we have a call like this, I should have a proper answer.
Right. Fantastic. And we are looking at making this at the very least a monthly occurrence in doing these community calls here as well. So there will be certainly a lot more updates coming your way as well here too. Now, guys, if you do have questions, please post them into the official community channel. I'm getting a lot of DMs coming through of questions, and it just makes more sense for everybody else if we can have them in the main chat, please. So feel free to type them questions in here now. Otherwise, we will consider wrapping up the call for this day. All right. Fernando has asked, what's the main differences between the Taro project and Mintlayer? Now, I know that is something that we're currently in the process of studying. Ben, is that something that you've looked into?
So it's something I've very, very vaguely looked into, but not properly yet. So
Right.
we have a list of projects in the engineering team that we try and keep up with and try and work out what other people are doing, how they're doing it, because other people have good ideas sometimes, so it's worth,
Yeah,
no point reinventing the wheel here. So
of
it's
course.
on the to-do list for me personally, and then maybe some people internally who have spent a bit more time on it than I have as it stands. But
Yeah.
it's on my personal to-do list, but I haven't put an awful lot of effort into it at the moment. No.
Okay. Okay. So we don't have a teardown for you, Fernando, on what the main differences are at this stage. But
We
stay
can
tuned.
answer that on Telegram at some point in the near future. We can
Sure.
write a response to that.
Yeah. Now that's actually a good point as well. We are very active in Telegram, guys. So if you've got questions, development questions about the project, we are here and we are available to get in touch with. I do want to keep the question specifically more towards the development topics. There's been a question about when will the audit be completed. The audit is ongoing at this stage. It's all been lodged. There's nothing else, no other information required from us at this point. So we are simply waiting for that to be completed. I can say that we have been told that it should be completed soon, but as far as a specific date, I just don't have that information at the moment. Everything has been lodged, but we're waiting for the auditors to continue on their end. So there's not much more I can give you apart from that. But rest assured, when we have more information, we will be letting you know about that as well. AbFab has asked a question. When do we expect an MVP for Mintlayer? Ben?
A testnet, I assume you mean by
Testnet.
MVP. So later this year is the answer. So there aren't that many things that need to be done, but the few things that remain are fairly big, like the consensus system. So yeah, later this year. Well, it should be this year, 2022.
Right.
But towards the end of it, Q4, I would expect.
Great. Alrighty, fantastic. Well, look, we are getting to the end of it here, so we might take the opportunity to wrap that up. So, Ben, thank you as always for your time and your continued hard work, and for all of you who've joined us, thank you for your continued support and interest in Mintlayer. Of course, don't forget to spread the word. Follow us on Twitter and keep the conversation going here in Telegram. I've been Sam Patton, and thank you for joining us today on the call. We look forward to chatting you all at the next Mintlayer community call. Bye for now.
Cheerio. Bye-bye.